Have you ever looked at someone who wakes up at 4 a.m., hits the gym, eats clean, builds their dream, and thought, I could never do that? As if they were born different, as if discipline was some rare gene you just didn't inherit. But here's the truth no one told you. Discipline is not a gift. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows through use, not birthright. No one wakes up one day magically disciplined, not the athlete, not the CEO, not the writer. They started where you are, tired, distracted, overwhelmed. But they trained. One small promise to themselves at a time, one uncomfortable decision at a time, until the hard became automatic. You don't need more motivation. You need to stop believing discipline is something you either have or don't. It's not. It's something you build. And it starts with one action today. Not perfect, just consistent. You're not broken. You're untrained. And training starts now. We often glorify willpower, thinking that success belongs to those with iron determination, that if we could just summon enough strength, grit our teeth and push through, we'd finally become disciplined. But here's the truth. Willpower is just a match. It sparks fast, burns bright, and dies just as quickly. It's not built to last. And if you're relying on that little spark to carry you through every challenge, burnout is inevitable. Real discipline is something else entirely. It's not a blazing fire of motivation. It's a slow, steady fire pit. Quiet, constant, controlled from within. Discipline doesn't depend on how you feel. It doesn't rise and fall with your emotions. It's built on action, habit, and systems. Why does this matter? Because if you've been beating yourself up for not being strong enough, it's time to let that go. You don't need to be superhuman. You don't need to win every internal battle. What you need is a system, a small, repeatable action that bypasses your brain's resistance and creates new, lasting pathways. That's how discipline is formed. Not through force, but through consistency. The match is useful. It can start the fire. But if you want it to stay lit, you need fuel, habits, structure, intention. So next time you feel weak or unmotivated, don't ask yourself for more willpower. Ask yourself for one small action that moves you forward. Because in the long run, the person who takes one steady step every day will always outlast the one who burns bright for a moment and fades. We've been taught that discipline starts with inspiration, that we need to feel motivated, energized, and emotionally fired up before we can act. But that belief is exactly what keeps most people stuck. The truth is, discipline doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with action. Tiny, deliberate, almost embarrassingly small action. Not a 5 a.m. workout. Not writing 1,000 words. Just one small, intentional step that is so easy, your brain has no reason to resist it. This is the genius behind what's called the 2-minute rule. It's not about what you achieve in those 2 minutes. It's about what those 2 minutes do to your brain. They interrupt your autopilot. They rewire your neural patterns. And they teach your mind that you are someone who takes action, even when you don't feel like it. You don't need to wait until the stars align or your emotions feel perfect. You don't need willpower that burns like fire. What you need is to take one small step right now. Put on your running shoes, write one sentence, drink a glass of water, or open the book you've been meaning to read. That's it. Because in that moment, you send a powerful message to your subconscious.
I am not the kind of person who waits. I am the kind of person who begins. It's not glamorous, but it's real, and it works. Neuroscience confirms that these micro actions, when repeated, reshape your brain's structure through a process called neuroplasticity. The result? You build new habits, new mental pathways, and ultimately, a new identity. Discipline stops being something you chase. It becomes something you are.
What if I told you that the most powerful form of self-transformation isn't grand, isn't loud, and doesn't require perfect motivation? It only takes 2 minutes. Here's the truth. When you take a small action, even for just 120 seconds, you're not simply completing a task. You're rewiring your brain. Modern neuroscience has revealed something incredible. Our brains adapt and evolve through a process called neuroplasticity. That means every action, no matter how small, leaves a mark. Repeat it enough times and it becomes your default behavior. This is the real secret to discipline. It's not about forcing yourself into huge commitments or waiting for motivation to strike like lightning. It's about acting first, even when you don't feel like it. Because when you act, even without feeling ready, your brain begins to shift. You tell your nervous system, this is who I am now. I'm not the person who waits. I'm the person who begins. And the beauty? Your brain listens. One sentence written. One push-up. One deep breath. That's all it takes to begin changing your identity at the core. You become someone who doesn't just dream about change, but lives it. One simple act at a time. Not through pressure, not through perfection, but through daily, quiet, undeniable proof. 2 minutes. That's your invitation. Not to overwhelm yourself, but to begin. To disrupt the old cycle. To take back control from autopilot. Every time you act, you carve a new mental path. One that leads straight toward the person you were always capable of becoming. Most people think change begins with results. Losing weight, earning more money, launching a project. But true transformation begins at a much deeper level. Identity. You don't change your life by doing something big once. You change your life by becoming someone who shows up, even in the smallest way, every single day. That's what the 2-minute system unlocks. It isn't just about forming a habit. It's about redefining who you are. Every time you complete your 2-minute action, whether it's one push-up, one sentence, or one mindful breath, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become.
Not a dreamer, a doer. You're wiring your brain to believe this is who I am. Over time, your brain no longer needs motivation because your actions align with your identity. You don't just do disciplined things, you become a disciplined person. And here's what's powerful. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be consistent.
A 2-minute action, repeated day after day, builds self-trust, the most unshakable foundation of growth. You begin to feel proud, not because of what you accomplished, but because you kept a promise to yourself. That is how change becomes permanent, not by force, not by pressure, but by small daily wins that stack up over time. Your identity becomes your engine, and when that happens, discipline is no longer something you chase, it's something you live. You don't need to change your whole life overnight. That belief alone has paralyzed millions. Waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect version of yourself before you begin is the greatest trap of all. Because the truth is, your life doesn't shift by chasing results. It shifts when you shift. The only transformation that truly matters is internal. Change the person, and the results will follow. It's not magic, it's momentum. Every day, you're given a choice to stay the same or to become 1% better. And that doesn't happen through giant leaps. It happens in moments so small, they're almost invisible. 2 minutes of courage, 2 minutes of action, 2 minutes of choosing discipline over delay. When you commit to those tiny acts, something incredible begins to form. Not a habit, not just progress, but a new identity. You stop being someone who tries to change, and you become someone who does. Eventually, the actions you once had to force become automatic. The resistance fades. Your story changes not because the world gave you permission, but because you rewrote the script. So if you want to change your life, stop chasing the big. Start building the small, and do it consistently. Because when the person changes, the outcome becomes inevitable. Most people treat discipline as something external, an action, a checklist, a task to complete. But real transformation begins when discipline stops being what you do and becomes who you are. This shift in identity is subtle but powerful. You no longer need to negotiate with yourself. You don't ask, "Should I do this today?" You already know the answer. It's just what someone like you does. Imagine this. Brushing your teeth doesn't require motivation. You don't need a pep talk. It's a reflex. That's what true discipline feels like when it becomes identity. You've trained your brain through repetition, not inspiration. Each 2-minute action sends a signal. I'm someone who follows through. And over time, that message rewires your nervous system. It becomes your new default. This is why the 2-minute habit is so transformative. It's not about results at first. It's about proving to yourself, day after day, that you're someone who shows up. And when you show up consistently, everything else follows. Focus, energy, confidence, and momentum. You're not trying to be disciplined anymore. You are disciplined. That identity, once rooted, is unshakable. And once you become that person, success is no longer a question of if, but when. It may seem like just a small action, a simple X on your calendar, one sentence written, a single push-up. But these tiny acts are rewriting your identity. You don't need to do something grand. You don't need to change the world in one day. All you need is to keep one small promise to yourself. That, repeated consistently, builds a stronger, more disciplined version of you. The version you were always meant to become. Imagine this. Every time you complete a 2-minute action, you're telling your brain, I am someone who keeps their word. Over time, that message becomes more than a habit. It becomes a foundation of self-trust. A trust that might have been shaken by failure, by procrastination, or by doubt. But now, step by step, you're reclaiming it. And one day, you wake up and realize you're not trying to be disciplined anymore. You are disciplined. If this message speaks to you, if you're looking for a fresh start, don't wait. Begin today. Just 2 minutes. And if you found value in this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Not for me, but for you. To keep receiving reminders that you can change your life, one small action at a time.